Thank you.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Play Hard and Love Big Radio. My name is Nick Clark, and I am your host today. Play Hard and Love Big Radio is the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and Sup Shop based out of Folsom, California. Play Hard and Love Big Radio is dedicated to bringing you the people and the inspirational stories to inspire you to become the very best version of yourself. And we have a very special guest with us today by the name of Price Walker. Welcome to the show, Price.
Thank you, Nick. Really happy to be here. Really just couldn't think of anything more fun to do than sit and talk to you a little bit. You've been a great inspiration to me.
Well, thank you, my friend, and you a great inspiration to me as well. Let me give you a little background on Price. Price is the Vice President of Project Development for Elliott Homes, and he's been doing it for 33 years. Tell me, Price, what has happened in Folsom? I mean, it's changed a lot. What was it like 33 years ago when you were working with Elliott Homes?
You know, we got here, my wife and I moved up here shortly before I started, and it was kind of a sleepy little town with a lot of rocks, quite honestly, and cows. And my background as a city planner, and when I went to work for Elliott, I looked around here, and it did seem like a great place to develop housing, to develop, the retail. We're sitting in here in the studio, which was quite honestly a project that we built. And, all of this area just was ripe for housing because it was on Highway 50. There was a lot going on. Intel had, I think at the time, 7,500 employees with nowhere to live. And so we started out just building houses, and that's primarily what we do. But we also have built, the shopping center where the studio, Spotted Dog Studio, stands, and we also built Palladio across the street.
It's really amazing how it's all developed. I know the first time when I came to Folsom, all the area where you are right now in the studio and that whole area, there was nothing.
No,
It
there's
was like,
lots.
yeah, unbelievable. So tell me now that there's this amount of expansive growth in the Folsom area, what do you see as possible in developing that area?
Yeah, it's slowly going to grow, and I mean grow and built out. And most of the area now is on what's called the Folsom Plan area. It's the area south of 50, and that's if you drive over that way now, it's really expanding. I think they've had something like 1,500 houses built in the last 3 or 4 years. It will build out, and I think that will be kind of the end of it, and into the expansion probably in the next 7 or 8 years. I think that's a good thing. There's a point where there's kind of a saturation, and not only Folsom's there by any means yet, but it'll get there. And you just want a full community of schools and parks and the retail you need and all of those services. And we're right now getting, I think, 2 or 3 new large hospital-like campuses, which kind of is what we've been needing too, is some health services. And when they're in here, I think Folsom will be pretty complete.
Wow, that's amazing.
And
Yeah.
my job will be done, and I'll be ready to chase grandchildren around and do yoga every day with you.
Well, that's a good goal to have, my friend.
That
That
is
is
my
a good
goal.
goal. You all can see it if you're watching the video podcast, and you can probably hear it through Price's voice. But the main conversation here today with Price that I would like to have, and I'm excited to have with him, is the value of optimism and positivity. Anytime I'm ever around you, Price, I feel optimism and positivity. And I would like to hear from your experience of life, how you developed optimism and positivity, number one. And number two, how it's helped you in life,
Yeah.
being a person, being in work, all the different things. So let's tackle question number one. How did you become so optimistic and positive?
It's a good question that I get a lot, which I guess that's a good thing, right? That means that people must see it in me. I think you start with smiling. I know it sounds so obvious, and a lot of things I'm saying to you probably today I think will sound obvious. I'm a pretty simple guy that lives by a few pretty simple rules, and one of them is smiling at people. They want to be smiled at. You're always giving me kind of a jokingly hard time about smiling, and I do yoga. I look up, I smile at you. I smile at Katie, and you start with that. But a lot of that being aside, I think you go through life with a lot of ups and downs, and staying positive is something that I've always had in me. I think some of it's DNA. My father, who I was very close to and lost at a younger age than I wanted to, he was a very positive person. Almost everybody that met my dad would say, "Boy, I walked away feeling better than when I met him." And I think that's something that I got. There is something to DNA. I think, believe it or not, having a good positive personality, there is some DNA. Some of it, though, is just making an approach to yourself to be around positiveness. I like to be around positive people. It's one of the things, obviously, that really attracted me to you and attracted me to yoga is most people that do yoga are very positive people. Not all, but most of them. And if they do yoga long enough, I think they'll be positive too. So I try to find positive people to to be attracted to myself and vice versa. Quite honestly, I just don't it almost sounds harsh, but I don't waste my time with negative people. I'm not rude or mean to them, but I just don't need that second time with them or a third time with them. I just move on. There's a lot of people in the world, and there's a lot of us that want to be positive. I think everybody wants to. They just struggle with it. They get caught up with that whole daily routine of whining and moaning and complaining about things, and I just avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me like it's a, and I agree with you, it's a pattern
It
that
is.
people create. Right? We can choose to be positive or we can choose to be negative. And sometimes in life we have experiences that rock us to the core and that
Yes.
challenge us. And
Yes.
still, even in those times, because we've all had those times, even in those times, we have a choice to whether to look at it as
Yeah.
the
I.
glass half
I.
full or the glass half empty, right?
Yeah. And you and I've known each other now for quite a few years, and I've met a lot of people at Spotted Dog, and hopefully there'll be a lot of people that watch this that have known me or know of me. But I've had a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of downs, way more downs than I would say most people would believe. And unfortunately, I've had a lot of tragic, untimely deaths in my family and my wife's. Lost my parents, certainly my dad, way earlier than I wanted. My sisters passed away earlier than I wanted. My wife's had four brothers pass away. So we've gone through a lot of tragedy. And then I've also had a lot of personal, especially early on in my life, some personal obsessions that turned into dark holes that I had to work my way out of. Some addiction issues and things as a young guy with that I had to struggle with and work out of. And honestly, it was always falling back to positive people and positive. You know, every day you're going to get up, hopefully, and if you can look at it negatively and let those things that are nailing you to the ground nail you, or you can get up and just kind of forget about them. I've always been fortunate enough to not dwell on things very long. I can move on very quickly, and I think I've used that to my benefit with things that have affected me to my core, as you said. And I wasn't going to use this word presence today because we use it, probably overuse it in yoga. But I've always been someone, and still are, that can be in the present pretty easily and pretty quickly. I don't think about yesterday much, and I'm really good at forgiving. I think we all need to really remember how forgiving is so much more important than this dwelling on it or revenge or getting back at something. Just think about it, forgive, and then just move on. And that's kind of an attitude I've had pretty much my whole life. What really has changed with me, though, if I had to say what's changed a little bit with yoga, especially in my time at Spotted Dog, is I've always had kind of that ability to change and forget. But I also was a guy that really really would jump from place to place very quickly. And I'm really going to have an obsessive personality that led to some of my issues, but also have kind of given me that energy that I have. And what yoga has done is kind of leveled off those ups and downs. I've had a lot of, before yoga, I was always like this, always jumping in with both feet, but then, having trouble swimming. And now I basically kind of jump in still have the energy, still have the passion, but it's more level.
Yeah.
You
It's
kind of make
amazing
that make
how,
sense, or is it?
no, it does. I mean, that's been my experience with the practice of yoga as
Yeah,
well. And just like being, yoga as one of the tools, but also just learning how to breathe more consciously and to slow down and to be less reactive. That's
yeah,
what's coming up for me with what you're saying is
yeah.
like you're less reactive. You don't just like make an abrupt decision to jump in. You actually take a few moments, get grounded, take
I
a few
think
breaths, and
that's
make a decision that's smart for you or that's
that's
right
right,
for you.
right on point. I was much more reactive than I am today, and some of it's age and wisdom and maturity, but some of it's listening and reading and doing practicing yoga as well. And in addition, I know you and I chatted a little bit before we started about just other things that have gone through my life, and so I've had a lot of, quite honestly, tragedy and some personal kind of demons to work through. All along, I was also very athletic, used a lot of my energy that you feel on the baseball field or the soccer field, or I got very obsessed with running
Hmm.
and started running as about a 30-year-old, and for the next 25, 30 years was really, really obsessed. I mean, during some of those years that I was, quite honestly, drinking too much alcohol, I would drink 5 or 6 beers and go out for 20 miles. That's not the way you're supposed to do this.
Before you go for a run, you'd have 5 or 6 beers.
Yes, yes.
Oh wow,
Yeah, it
shit.
wasn't the way you were supposed to run marathons. Was what they were called, water breaks. Well, I was doing something else at those water breaks, and
Okay.
and but that also it did keep me, quite honestly, pretty physically fit, but it beat my body up, and I have a
Mm,
pretty torn up knee right now, and I've got a really torn up back right now, and really wish, just from a physical standpoint, I had started yoga when I was 30 instead of when I was in my late 50s. I think I'd still be running. I'm not running right now much anymore, but I still do yoga to allow me to do, a Peloton, or to do, swimming, or to play pickleball, or some of these other sports that I still like to compete in. And when I was injured, getting into the yoga studio it wasn't a physical challenge as much as it was a mental challenge. I know all of us can use every excuse in the world to not do everything in the world also, right? And yoga is just another one of those things we do that people come up with an excuse not to do it. And there was a little period in the last 8 years since I've been coming to the studio where I was using some of my injuries to not come as regularly. And I finally just said, what am I doing? I need to get back in there. And if I have to modify by not doing some of the back bends that I was afraid to do, and not only not just afraid to do, but it was keeping me from coming in at all. I finally said
yeah.
that doesn't make any sense. And so, as you know, I'm back to coming quite regularly, and I just, go through Journey into Power and modify those 2 or 3 times during the 60 minutes that I need to do, and everything's wonderful.
Yeah, and at the end of it, how do you feel?
I feel fabulous. I mean, I'm back to feeling, leaner, longer. I mean, just from a physical standpoint, what yoga can do for you in terms of just kind of what it does for me is just I know it sounds crazy, but I feel longer. It kind of pulls me apart. And it only takes a millimeter for my back to feel better by just being drawn apart. That's part of the issue there, is everything is kind of squished together. And so
Yeah.
with that, I feel much better physically. I mean, let's face it, even if you're one of those few unfortunate people that look at everything on the dark side or the half empty glass, when you feel physically better, that glass starts getting fuller. And
Mm.
so, yeah, it's made everything a lot better.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, I compliment you, my good friend, for getting back in there because it is true that a lot of people do what you did. They have a little injury here, a little injury there, and then they think, I can't do the practice. But in
Exactly.
reality, you can do the practice. You have to be able to learn how to adapt the practice, like Price, like you've done, so that you can get the big benefits of yoga, which are like little movements and shifts and length and
Yes.
whatnot, but the big benefits, like right up in your head,
Yes.
clearing of the space, the open, creating presence so you're less reactive, like we talked about earlier. And then hopefully that leads you to a place where you're more optimistic and more positive, and the world just opens up and more possibilities are there for you everywhere from that work.
Yeah, and I think that, goes across your whole life, right? I mean, I think anybody who walks through this door, I'm sitting in the studio. Anybody who walks through this door, I think is going to walk out this door feeling good and being more positive. I mean, I've talked to so many people in the last 8 years in this studio. Everyone will say, not everyone, I mean, not one less. Man, that was great. That made me feel so good. I needed that. That was the best. Whatever. And all it takes is walking through the door. And I went for about a 6 month time where I was using my injuries that were real. They are real.
Yeah.
From, kind of like throwing out what do they say? Throwing out the baby with the bathwater, whatever. I mean, I didn't need to throw out my yoga just because I couldn't do some back bends. That really is what it came down to, and I just don't do them. I just pass that part and stare at my yoga teacher for those 30 seconds and with a grin get
You
through
know
it.
what, Price? You're a remarkable person. And I've very much enjoyed this podcast today, and I appreciate your time. Before I let you go, though, we've got to go through a few things
Of course.
that are unique and amazing to Price. One thing, he's a parrot head, which means, for all of you that don't know, that means that he is a Jimmy Buffett fan. I've been to a Jimmy Buffett fan with Price Walker. But tell me, Price, how many Jimmy Buffett concerts have you been to?
We well we I've been to probably 40, 45 Buffett shows now, pretty much from California to been to two or three in Long Island, and a lot of places in between. And I've taken my children. I haven't taken my grandchild yet. We were supposed to take him, and the show got canceled. So we're still hoping. We're hoping Jimmy does a couple more years so I can get my little Declan to a Buffett show. And the little guys are called parakeets. So
The
I got to get
oh,
my little parakeet to a Buffett show, and
that's so
all good,
cute and amazing, man. Yeah, well, that's
all good.
another thing about Price is he's a grandpa and refers to himself as the best grandpa. And because of the fact that you just mentioned you're going to take him to a Jimmy Buffett fan, I think it solidifies that, man.
Thank you.
Another person in your life who is the like anchor for you, you can go ahead and talk about her. And how long have you been married to that wonderful woman?
In September 24th, my wife Bonnie and I will have been married 40 years. And as I said earlier in the talk, we've had a lot of ups and downs, but we stuck together through a lot of tragedy, a lot of hard times. Most people meet us through the studio have said, "Wow, you guys are just such an upbeat couple." You get the feeling they think everything's great, and you go through. Personally, we've gone through a lot of struggles and gotten through them. We have a wonderful, incredibly close family, three children that really are most dear to me, and I couldn't be who I was without her. And she's my best friend and has been and will be for another 40 years, hopefully.
What do you love the most about your lady, Bonnie Walker, who, by the way, is also a teacher at Spotted Dog Yoga? What
That
do you
is
love the
such
most
of
about
all.
her?
That's probably the most difficult to actually answer. But I mean, she has an incredibly loyal, strong heart, and once you've won that heart over, and sometimes that's not as simple as it would be. It sounds, but once you have that heart won over, she will never part from it, and her loyalty and caring is beyond end.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what's really neat is in the pre podcast questionnaire that Price filled out, one of the questions that I asked to Price is, what do you see as your best quality? And Price answered that he's caring about people and he's loyal. And what's really neat is that you also said that about your wife. The
Yeah,
two of you are very caring people and you care about people. And two of the most loyal people that I know, and I really appreciate that, man. And it's neat that you see it in yourself and that you see it in your wife. You have to be able to see
right.
things in yourself in order to see them in other people.
You do, and we have
Yeah,
a hard time with that. I mean, we meaning people.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man, how do you play hard in your life? What do you do to play hard
Um,
other than
I,
other than yoga
yeah,
and Jimmy
I
Buffett?
I generally have a good time in life. I spend a lot of time with my family. We travel together. We play together. We go to ball games. I'm a big soccer fan, big music fan. I mean, we have a good time outside of things, and I also stay real involved with my industry, the building industry, attending events, and I'm one of those guys that if I'm not moving, I'm dead. I really live by that. I like to move. I like to stay on the go. Nick knows how busy I am. I mean, I use that term kind of in quotes because a lot of people say I'm too busy to do that. I'm too busy to do that. I am a really busy guy, but I still find time for things like a podcast with Nick Clark because it's fun and it's important.
Yeah, thank you, Price. Well, it has been so amazing being with you. One last question,
Of course.
because I know it's something that you do to play hard. Stand-up paddleboarding and
Yes.
stand-up paddleboarding yoga. We're about to start the
Yes.
stand-up paddleboard yoga season. You're going to get out and do some paddle adventures with me, aren't
I
you?
am absolutely going to. I think I've been on one year. I think I went to 4 or 5 the same season. Um, I thought I was like the poster child for it for a while. Um,
You still are.
but yes,
Yeah.
I definitely will be out there. My daughter and my son-in-law have moved up here, so we're gonna get those two out on the stand-up yoga as well. And one something else I'll just throw out there pitch for this is your company. If you work somewhere that feels like the folks there need a little stress relief or a little fun or a little team bonding, whatever the current term is, sign up as a group for some stand up paddling. We did that. Elliot Holmes did that with Nick and Katie. They took us up to Sly Park, and it was a hoot. And we all still talk about it to this day. I work for a gentleman who has done a lot of things in his life, and he's very super successful, wealthy man, and he still talks about going stand up yoga paddling for goodness sake. And so
Mm.
it's something that will make your life better for sure.
Thank you, Price. I have had an amazing time talking with you today. You're the conduit of greatness, man. If you get around Price Walker and you have a chance to get around Price and his wife Bonnie, you are guaranteed to be lifted up. Your energy, your spirit, and all of that. So get to the studio if you live in Folsom and get in there and see Price and Bonnie and the amazing community. Um, this has been an absolute pleasure having you. Everyone, thank you for tuning in to Play Hard and Love Big Radio. Play Hard and Love Big Radio is the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and Sup Shop based out of Folsom, California. Play Hard and Love Big Radio is dedicated to bringing you people and inspirational stories that help inspire you to be the greatest version of yourself. And Price, you most definitely have done that for us today.
Thank you, Nick.
Check out
Appreciate
spotteddogyoga.com and we will see you all later. Thank you, Price. Goodbye.
it. See ya.
See you, my man. See you, everyone.